Okay, so we're going to do a little message exercise. So let's come up with exact topic. So is it just global? Why save trees? Why cave? Give me a topic we want to talk about. Keep trees alive during drought. Does that work? Okay. Keep trees alive during drought. Sure. There's probably a better chance they'll be able to read it. So our theme, or the question we're going to address, is keep trees alive during drought. Okay, so what would your first message be? Or this could also be the question, right? This could be the main theory or question posed regarding a story someone wants to work on. Or a councilman wants to work on. Why should we keep trees alive during drought? Mm-hmm. Okay, say that again. Oh. We'll need the microphone more for this one. Okay.
We all know there's an extreme drought on. Do you realize how it's affecting your trees?
Okay. What does everybody think from a message standpoint? We all know. So, and the concern is that sounded a little bit more like another question. So we've already been given the question. Let's kind of assume this is our question. I want to know what you would tell somebody.
Prioritize watering trees.
Droughts are temporary, and the little water trees last a lifetime.
Droughts are temporary. With the little water, trees will last a lifetime. What do you think? So that suggests to me, right now, that there should be, that all the coverage right now is on drought. Everybody's focused on drought. Does that message help us get to, okay, drought's key, but here's some things we can't forget about during the drought?
So trees take 30 to 40 years to mature, whereas a lawn, you can replace it in a day.
Okay.
Is that what you're going for?
So, okay. So who's that going to resonate with?
Anybody who doesn't want to lose a tree.
Okay. Why wouldn't they want to lose a tree?
Oh, you're going for the services they provide?
We're trying to build to something that's going to resonate with somebody as to why it's important to keep a tree alive.
Because trees provide higher quality of life and good health and better economy, and they're essential to a beautiful urban environment.
Okay. Say that again.
Trees provide high
quality
quality of life.
I'm going to be more aggressive now.
Okay.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit more.
Okay. High quality of life, healthier, more beautiful urban areas, cooler urban areas, wildlife habitat, if you are a bird watcher. And
so which of those elements would resonate, and who would they resonate with?
well, I think any homeowner would value the shade component,
Okay.
and any bird watcher would like the wildlife habitat. And I think quality of life and beauty is pretty much, everybody wants to live in a beautiful urban environment if they live in an urban environment. They want it to be more green infrastructure, less hard gray infrastructure.
So I think we need to be careful with everybody wants to.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some people that like concrete.
Maybe in New York City.
I think there's some people that don't want to deal with having to water a tree. Or cleaning up after a tree.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm the one that rakes, I'm out there raking leaves. I'm just starting. Yes. That's an excellent point. Trees are work sometimes, right? Our last house had that nasty, some needle thing that dropped, and it was just...
So the benefits far outweigh the maintenance and
Okay.
investment.
So a message like that, let's say we decide one of our key messages is the benefits. Well, how would we say that? Because the benefits of keeping a tree alive far outweigh letting it die. We'd probably have to say there are tremendous benefits to saving a tree. And then the follow-up is, here are the benefits. So easier to deal with a live tree than a dead tree. But once the tree dies, don't I only deal with it once? And if it lives, I have to rake those leaves and water that thing forever. Okay, so oh no, I wasn't touting that as a message. I'm playing devil's advocate. Yeah.
Is this on or off?
It's now on.
Okay. I think you have to be careful about the words that we use. If we say it's less expensive, we'll say, well, we're intimating that it's expensive.
Yeah.
The trees are expensive.
Well, according to that flyer over there, trees are worth $3,880 or something? Okay, so
in the Inland Empire, you've come up with, I provide $3,880 in benefits.
We didn't come up with it. It's research from the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay. Shade, energy savings, improved air quality, reduced noise and dust, wildlife nesting sites and food services, control of stormwater, erosion and wind, higher property values, improved quality of life. Okay?
So let the tree die and you're killing $3,880 worth of values.
Okay? How does this become a mess? How does this become a message? Do we think a financial message is important?
To some people.
Some people? Do you want to utilize the financial message today?
If we're trying to reach past the choir, you've got to find a common denominator.
Yeah?
I think quality of life is a really good message to utilize. No?
The quality of life is not something that drops off of everybody's tongue on a daily basis.
One of the concerns with quality of life is, so finances, everybody knows what $3,800 is. Everybody can get that statistic Cindy said earlier, up to 30% of reduction off of cooling costs. That's reflective to everybody. Quality of everybody, so everybody views finances, right? $3,800 might mean different things to different people, right? Quality of life sometimes is subjective, because I might view the elements that are important to my quality of life might not be the same as Jose's quality, to his quality of life.
So it's your audience. If you're talking about children, it's not going to be $3,800. They can't relate to that.
Yeah, so the point is that, yeah, if we're talking about children, they're not going to relate to $3,800.
Me thinking, because that's the information, right? But whether it's the message, I'm so trying to put myself in the shoes of the audience, how we identify the audience we want to have this for. So I think that was a good point about saying if it's for the kids, I'm thinking I want a safe and fun place to play.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm thinking about the adult who's concerned about we're being told we need to reduce water and we need to watch the bill, then I am concerned about like the money aspect.
So let's hone down a little bit. Okay? So we jumped right into messaging. What is one, and we did this intentionally. What is the one thing we skipped? Jose just brought it up. Audience. Okay? We're trying to get everybody, right?
That's too big.
So let's.
You can't get everybody.
So let's break it down. Let's make it a little easier. So let's say you're going on a morning show. Okay? Good Day Sacramento. Good Day LA. You're going on a morning show. What's the highest viewership going to be? Moms. Okay? So let's prep 2 messages for Good Day LA. Assuming we're going to hit our biggest audience, we're going to be other people, but our biggest audience is going to be moms. What are the 2 messages we'd say? Melody?
Safe.
Healthy trees are safe trees.
Oh, do you want me to repeat it into this?
Why is it?
So trees that are drought stressed will drop branches more often and more sporadically at times that you wouldn't see it coming, unlike healthy, well-watered trees. And those branches have fallen on people, so that's why I think that's a good point.
So Melody brings up a good point. One of the things you're also, we talked about kind of routine, starting relationship with the media. We talked about kind of routine outreach. Melody brings us to a good point. What's been one of the bigger stories about drought right now in trees? Limb fell down, landed on some kids, right? Was it in Yosemite 2 kids passed away? Yeah. So one of the things you're also going to look for is opportunity. Again, don't take that the wrong way. There was nothing good about what happened. But it's got a lot of people thinking. Moms thinking. So right now would be a good time. Let's say Melody calls Good Day LA or Good Day Sacramento or whoever and says, you know what, I know everybody's been covering this. It might have a lot of parents concerned as to what that means and why a branch would fall. We'd love to send someone over for an interview to talk to you about that. Right? It's in the news, it's topical. You're taking advantage of that unfortunate tragedy, but it's probably got a lot of people thinking. And so you can help kind of suggest, here's what happens. Here is the natural progression of a tree. Okay? So healthy tree is a safe. Did you have another message? So again,
Yes.
Good Day LA moms.
Okay, so mine is that research has documented that children learn better when they have green around them, and also that trees create a healthier environment and a cooler environment because they clean and filter the air, and they shade, so when kids have to walk home from school, it's cooler for them.
Shrink that down into a message.
They create a healthy and safer environment, and they facilitate better learning.
Okay? Create healthier environment. Create healthier and cooler environment and facilitate learning.
Yes. Plus the crime aspect, they reduce crime.
So a message like that would have like one or two, would have a statistic underneath, right? You'd have to back that up. My guess is the biggest one you'd have to back up is the learning.
Well, there's research that documents that.
Okay? Okay?
We say kids love trees. Moms, you know how much kids love trees.
Can we? Is that a selling point?
I think the other thing,
I think one of the things that comes up anytime we start talking benefits of trees is that we start giving lots of different messages in one, and it happens all the time. And so I think maybe the idea is to do a sub-focus where you are talking about kids and health and keep it at that. Don't bring in the learning, but then you just talk the health. And I think there's the health about the limb dropping, and then there's also the health about, there's talk about ultraviolet rays, there's talk about heat stress, there's talk about just shade for your kids when they're out there doing sports. So how would you cluster? Because we tend to throw everything in the kitchen sink in when we talk about benefits of trees, and that's where we need help.
And so one of the things that you would do there is your message could be something about, trees bring great benefits to a family and a community. Might be your message. And then then during the interview or during the conversation, you can say, let me talk about health as an example. And then you mention a couple of things. Let me talk to you about as a family, let me talk to the financial benefit for a second. And then boom, you're on your up to 30% statistic. Okay? So that's one way is you do that bigger, the benefit. Let's use that. Okay? Why don't we use that one? Let's use a generic for trees bring benefit to individual homes and community. But the follow-up question you all understand is, really? What? And certain things are going to be easy. You have to understand, certain things are going to be easier for someone to make a connection on than others. So I get the shade. Shade's an easy one, right? Trees create shade. Everybody stood under a tree and got shade. That's an easy connection. So the cooling thing is understandable. That one's pretty understandable. Healthy and learning, I think to some people is going to be a bigger leap, in all honesty. Do you understand? Does that make sense? So you're going to have to be really ready to back that up. Because one of the things you also want to avoid is saying something that's going to cause opposition. You want to avoid saying something that's really going to say, okay, that doesn't pass the giggle test.
Yeah, but if you can explain the research that was done and incite it, then I think that would give you more validity.
So the point was, if you can explain the research and the statistics and give it validity. So one of the things you're going to have to think through is, as we talked about, remember one of the first slides we had was, what does print need, what does television need, what does radio need? I would suggest learning is probably best for print, because you're going to have most time one-on-one with the reporter to explain it to them. That's probably going to be a hard sell on radio in a 30-second story, and you're going to get 10 seconds. You're probably going to get 7 seconds. So understanding the different mediums, understanding if this is going to take, this is dead on, I love this one, but it's going to take some explaining. That might be in an article you write on your own that you submit, or it might be print, and maybe something faster like shade or finance, something that's quicker to explain or doesn't require as much explanation is better for TV or radio.
You also could fall into the jargon piece when you try and bring in. You can also fall into the jargon issue if you bring in, too many research articles. Because I know, like, sometimes, like I said, I'm pretty new, but when you bring out like the heat island effect and stuff like that, it might be common sense for a lot of people, but a lot of people don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
And when you do start pulling in these studies, sometimes you might run into that issue. And you might not have time to explain it all because you have 2 minutes or 3 minutes with a reporter.
Yeah. So there's one thing you always have to think through. What medium am I going to? And how much time am I going to have to explain it? Because if you throw out something that to some people doesn't pass the giggle test, that's what you're going to leave them with, is Okay, see, I never really did trust those tree people. And that's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to get anybody to think anything that loses credibility. Not because we don't have the stuff to back it up, because we started throwing more stuff out and we didn't have time to back it up. So we always got to take that into consideration. So there's some things you're going to use for print, some things you might use for a presentation when you can actually have more time to share, and some things, you know, on a 3-minute Unifishon morning show, you don't have time to go into some detail. Okay? Matthew?
Have you ever seen, or I mean, I guess it could backfire, but when I go out so far and go to events, what I'm having the most success at, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think people do get it if you can identify with them. Like, so if you went on to Good Day Sacramento or a Good Day show, and someone was here interviewing me, what I would say is, what do you like about Sacramento? Because one of the top 3 things people usually say are the trees.
Yeah.
And then you can play on and say, well, what would it be like in 3 years if the drought continues and we have to start taking out these trees? Like, how would you feel being on Jay at your favorite brunch spot and, you know, being in the blazing sun because it's not shading the patio you used to sit on? And getting that helps you tap into what that person's passions are or what they believe in the trees, and I think it helps I think it helps a lot. Unfortunately, you know, it's very personal, and it would take a long time to do that for everybody, obviously. So, but if you can tap into, maybe those same people are watching Good Day Sacramento, and that's why they're watching that reporter, because they identify with them in some way. But, you know, I think that is a good way, at least for me, to start getting the message, because then you can kind of adapt, and you can say, well, you know, yeah, you're right. All the trees that we have in downtown Sacramento are getting older, and we need to not only take care of those, but we need to plant new ones. We need to have some sort of succession plan for the trees that we have, or it's going to be a rough place to be with our summers.
And Matthew, what you've honed in on is what we talked about earlier. So you know Sacramento, and you know Sacramento as a community feels invested in trees. You know, they call it the city of, you know, trees, and there's an affinity to that. So in Sacramento, you can play off of that. You know the community, yeah, not everybody, but as a whole, the community, especially downtown, midtown especially, East Sac, really share an affinity to trees. So you can play off of that. And, you know, one of the things that Matthew just did was one of the examples we talked about. When he's talked about if those trees fall, where's the shade that you're used to when you're having brunch outside on the restaurant on J Street? Right? So you painted a picture for a community that we know in general values trees. Excellent.
About how do you reach the different audiences, and how do you extend that? And one of them was, we talked about people going to Griffith Park and having lots of picnics and outside parties. And you could say, you don't even have to say Griffith Park. You just say, and for those of you who like to go to the park and have outdoor parties, can you imagine being there without the trees in 3 years?
So consequence is good if, again, one of the things we're dealing with is our focus is trees in a drought. The drought is getting the story. It's the bigger piece. And frankly, it's an easier story to tell. And we're trying to sell a piece of it. We're trying to sell the tree piece of drought, or within drought, within the whole drought story. So it's going to be a little harder for us. We've got to figure out how to do that's, you know, the message of the benefits of what's going to resonate, the finance with a parent, with a homeowner, with a renter, with, you know, anybody who's paying utility bills. Jose?
You know, so this is part of a larger, because we have it there, save our water and our trees, right? Mm-hmm. So like you said, it's part of the messaging and the larger narrative about the drought, which is about saving water. So you need to reduce, reuse, don't waste. And so I think a bit of one of the things to fight the contradiction is that the story has been telling about water everything less. And so we're trying to say, but not so much of this particular thing. So one is like bridging that. The other thing that I really think is an asset is that trees are an easy identifiable thing, as compared to if we're asking people like, let's save water, but let's not let it all go to waste because we need the salmon to have it too. Like that's harder. It could still be part of the drought message, but that's a harder bridge to make. So I just keep staring at that. Save our water and our trees in terms of the messaging. I like how and we're not even saying about a specific type of tree or even differentiating, save the native trees, but let the invasives go.
Save every tree taller than 6
right,
feet.
Exactly. So I like that idea of how it's connected to the, that slice of life, daily life type of activities about going to the park. It makes me think about, because trees are so common, where are the places that people are seeing trees, which is in their house, at the school, in their parks. And so that's what I like about the messaging of how you can say imagine, or at the school or at the park. And even with the consequence of saying imagine all of a sudden you go to the park, there's no more trees, is the action piece.
Yeah.
But we can do something about that right now.
So again, one of the things, so you would go into an interview and say, my main issue, I'm going to talk about health and environment of the community. And the story or anecdote that I'm going to hold in my pocket is what Matthew just said. Now, he's got a perfect example in Midtown Sacramento, because it's full of trees, and there's an affinity to it. So, but that's the kind of, as you're going into an interview, here's my main 2 messages. Here's maybe 1 or 2 statistics that I'm going to hold in my pocket. I'm not going to throw them all out. I might use one. And here's an anecdote that's based off of this. Again, preparation. You've got your messages. You've got 1 or 2 anecdotes in your pocket that you're ready with. And you've talked through how you're going to say those in your head out loud. And then you've got 1 or 2 statistics. So you're going in with your arsenal. Practice, practice, practice. And what the approach I typically take with folks, and when I used to be a spokesperson for organizations, and when I'm helping clients now, is as you're practicing for an interview, ask the toughest questions possible. Don't just ask the softballs. Okay? If you're asking the toughest question, then when the toughest question doesn't come and they're easier, then you're set. But if you've said, oh, I think I'm going to get this question, if you've just assumed softball questions, then you're not ready. One of the things I will also do with a message is say it out loud. It's one thing to see it on paper, practice it out loud. Say some of your anecdotes out loud. Think through how you're going to say a statistic, but say it out loud. If you can say it with a colleague or someone else or a spouse or whoever, say it so someone else hears it. Because just writing it on paper, it might be different once you say it out loud. So there's little practice things that you want to get used to doing. Okay, so trees bring great benefit is going to be a general message that we're going to want you to try to throw out. And then we can healthier, cooler homes, communities. Does that work? Maybe not the ones we'd go with long term. Does that work for today? Okay. You're going to throw in your own messages too, because I'm going to throw some other questions at you from time to time. Okay. All right. Let's take a 2-minute break while I set up the camera, and then we'll start calling volunteers.